How's it going, everyone? So today's video is going to be focused more on the scuba diving community than the free diving community, which I'm a bit more involved in. So today I'm going to talk to you about DIVEAIR. And if you haven't heard of that, that's this new filling station at Whytecliff Park that basically just fills your scuba tanks at the dive location, which is a little bit of a unique thing. There's no person there filling a tank for you, it's just the machine, and it requires a bit of user input to fill your tank. And it's been pretty controversial. So before we get into this too much, I just want to clarify that by no means am I getting compensated or paid at all whatsoever. This is just a video that I wanted to make because I've seen quite a bit of conflict in the dive community on a couple of Facebook posts, and I thought it'd be really fair to give them a platform to speak out. As their social media platforms are pretty small, I thought this would be a bit of more of a fair way for them to get their message across and answer some questions that I've seen in Facebook comments. There were some comments that I felt were a bit unfair and they didn't have much of a chance to respond publicly. So yeah, this is basically this video, and again, this is not paid or sponsored in any means, but yeah, here we go. All right, if you guys want to give a quick introduction, who are you and what is DIVEAIR to you?
My name is Luke, and I'm the Director of Automation and Innovation at DIVEAIR Ltd.
My name is Brad, and I'm one of the operations team members of DIVEAIR.
The reason why I got into diving, I have about 10 years of diving experience from the Andaman Sea to the Great Barrier Reef. And I fell in love with the sport on the Great Barrier Reef when I first got to meet Brian the sea turtle on Flynn Reef. He's the largest greenback sea turtle ever recorded, and the experience was incredible. I've been diving here locally, inspecting salmon holding pens, and I'm here to elevate diving with DIVEAIR, innovating and creating awesome technology for divers to enjoy.
What are the benefits of having a system like this right at a dive site?
The first one's convenience. So when you arrive here at Whytecliff Park, you get to see this beautiful machine here. It allows you to fill up to 2 tanks simultaneously in a safe manner. Our system has been engineered and properly tested here in BC. We're BC owned, we're Canada built, and Canada innovated. So 100% of the effort to go into building the system happened right here locally with local vendors and local third-party engineers, as well as our personal staff. For this particular unit, it took around 15,000 hours of R&D to develop it, to bring that level of convenience here. We like to call it the chairlift of scuba diving. As you may be aware, when you go diving, you show up at a dingy parking lot most of the time, you put on your gear, walk down some path, usually it's poorly lit, you get in the water and you go diving. With skiing, you have a chairlift, you have lodges, you have amenities, you have all sorts of these value-added services like ski run maps. With diving, you don't really have any of that. So we're the ones that wanted to bring that level of convenience here for the local diving community with this system. And DIVEAIR Ltd prides itself in delivering safe, clean, reliable air fills that are convenient. So you don't have to do all the driving. You can just show up, fill your tank, and do some diving. You don't need multiple tanks. You just bring one. One of the things that we did, for example, this building next to us, its foundation was being washed away, and the park asked us to fill that in with concrete, and so we happily obliged. And now you don't see the regular sandbags that were blocking that flow of water. Those have been removed by the park thanks to the work that we've done. An additional revenue that we bring to this park is that there is a revenue share between DIVEAIR and the park here. So a portion of our revenue goes directly to benefit Whytecliff Park, and we believe that we should be supporting these parks so that there are better facilities here, so that we can get a proper shower instead of just a garden hose, so that we can have proper change rooms here, so that we can have a gazebo for any time you're here while it's pouring rain and you don't have to sit in your car while it's idling. One key service that DIVEAIR wants to bring to this park is live monitoring of the conditions actually underwater. So your visibility, that sort of data, including live tidal data, so that can all be in one place, one hub for any dive site that our service is at. We'd like to bring those services to these parks, and those are actually in our roadmap. We'd like to bring that technology here and help support these parks.
So do you see any conflict or competition arising between yourselves and local dive shops, or do you see more of a partnership being developed?
Long term, we are hoping for the partnership. We have seen the conflict already. You may have seen the controversy on Facebook, to which I've personally responded to several individuals on there, making several claims without having used our system, without understanding our system. And I'd like to just say that whenever I'm here, I'm happy to show anybody how the system works. It will actually prevent out of hydro tanks from being filled. Yes, it does rely on accurate information being entered. That is part of our terms and conditions. But when you engineer a system like this, you start with the policy level, and then you build upon that various engineering barriers to prevent any issues. I believe this system is the safest in North America as a fill station, and that's one of the additional benefits that we bring, this system being so convenient.
I've heard both sides of the comment. I don't trust a machine to fill my tanks. I want a trained technician. And the opinion seems to be that in the long run, both actually are being filled by machine. But a dive technician may be able to spot flaw in a tank. Are there any protocols in place by the machine to detect flaws in the tanks or valves?
Yes, there are. There are several layers of algorithms that actually analyze your attachment to our system. So whenever you attach your tank, that whole process is being monitored live by our software. There are several prompts in place and several algorithms in place that monitor whether or not there's a leak, whether or not your tank valve may be damaged or closed, whether or not so there's something off with the connection, and it's actually quite sensitive. And so that process has been meticulously engineered with several $1,000s put into it to detect any issues as you're attaching your tank. We also then run live analytics. As soon as you confirm that you have attached your tank to our system, those live analytics will run several tests that are actually proprietary and developed by DIVEAIR Ltd. to analyze the connection and to determine whether statistically the connection is safe.
I've spoken to a few dive shop employees and owners. Their main concern is that often people who come in don't know their tanks properly and can't read the hydro stamps on their tank. And the people that may enter them input them incorrectly either by mistake or on purpose. What are your thoughts about this?
Number one, your dive shop can't guarantee the tank safety information and its authenticity on any tank. It's very easy to buy the sticker. It's very easy to take the stamp for the hydro date and just put it on any tank. Bring that tank to your shop, and you're actually putting that fill tech at risk because they don't have engineered barriers. DIVEAIR has engineered for this specific problem, and it starts at the policy level. Our policy is you have to input accurate information. Otherwise, it's against our terms and conditions. Any person who maliciously falsifies tank safety information for our system, if caught by our staff, they end up getting banned from our system. That would be true for a dive shop as well. For us, we've actually engineered past that problem where we don't rely on your hydro. We don't actually rely on your visual inspection date. They are good metrics for whether or not your tank is okay, but they're never a guarantee, regardless of when you committed those tests.
So I watched some of your instructional videos about DIVEAIR here, and it doesn't appear while you're entering your scuba information that you actually have to have a valid scuba certificate, which most dive shops, well, they're all supposed to require to fill a tank. Is there something that you've put in place to stop people without a dive certificate from filling tanks?
There is, and so when you sign up for an account for our membership tier, you have to actually input your diver information, including your cert card, on our website. For guest users, there is no way for us to actually verify whether or not your card is valid because you could borrow your friends, but that could be true for your dive shop as well. And it comes down to this authenticity issue. Whether or not you're driving a vehicle, whether or not you're diving, the certification issue, it exists for both scenarios. So as a driver, you're running on the honor system. Do you actually know whether the other drivers have a valid driver license or not? Who's checking that? That's always a process of you're caught and then consequences happen afterwards. It's never a preventative measure. And so for us, we don't believe it's an actual issue. DIVEAIR is not the easiest way to get a tank at this park. All you have to do is walk down the hill on a Sunday or Saturday. There are tanks left unattended by divers all the time on the beach. If someone wants to go diving who's unauthorized to dive, they could pick up one of those tanks and just go. Why would they waste minutes standing here and filling a tank? Where would they get it from? So would a dive shop sell them that tank without them being a valid scuba diver? Would they rent them that tank without checking their certification. Where did they get that tank? It's a lot of effort, and we haven't seen that. The public, they don't really use this system unless they are certified divers.
On your tanks here, is there any availability for hours? Is it 24 hours a day? Is there a shut-off time at night?
This system is available 24/7, with the exception of whenever we are actively involved in our service maintenance interval. Once they're done, it's good to go, and you can use this system.
Approximately how often do you guys come and service it and make sure everything's up to spec?
I'm here about once a week, roughly, sometimes more frequently than that.
Does the machine do anything to double check the type of tank inserted? For example, if someone is running a low pressure tank, would the machine still attempt to fill it to 3000 psi? Or if someone, let's say, put in a 30 cubic foot tank, but click the 80 cubic foot option screen, what's going to happen with the machine?
I'll answer the second question first. If someone puts in a larger tank and selects the smaller option, or the smaller option and selects the larger option, our system actually detects the volume that is in your tank using our algorithm, and it will fill it to the correct volume regardless of what you select. The system will then adjust its billing accordingly, and it will then bill you for whatever it filled. So there are several tanks actually below that as well, and there are several different pressures for tanks. This system currently prohibits tanks that have a service pressure of less than 3000 psi. We are working on a low pressure update to the system, which will allow low pressure fills in the near future. Currently, they are prohibited by the system, and there is in place mechanisms to prevent those from happening.
I've seen it mentioned that the system generates funds for parks, such as this one at Whytecliff. Could you elaborate on that?
We have a revenue share in place with the park. As part of our goal here, we want to increase the quality of the services that are available here. Rather than having just a garden hose, we'd like to see proper showers, maybe even hot water. We would love to see a gazebo being built so that during your surface interval, you don't have to get wet. You can sit there under a protected area right by the water and check on your gear, adjust something, or just enjoy just a sandwich, and you don't have to sit in your car while it's raining. We really like to see other services like that, and I really want to compare us to the skiing industry, because we are competing with skiing rather than all the dive shops competing amongst themselves. That's the reality of it. Diving here is on the decline. We have a retention rate after your PADI open water of around 1%. You have almost no facilities at most dive sites. You have just dingy parking lots or very little parking. And some of these places are absolutely wonderful to visit for divers. And so we want to elevate the diving experience by bringing convenient airfills to those locations, but also other amenities.
Online on your website, there's a wide selection of new locations across Greater Vancouver and on Vancouver Island that you want to establish. Which ones are going to be the first sites to have these stations?
Among the first locations we're planning is Porto Cove. That is a marine protected area with abundant diving, and it is a beautiful location. So we're hoping to add to the facilities that are there as our kind of next location.
So you can see here, I clicked on the website, and if you scroll down, you can see the dive areas that they currently have, such as Whytecliff Park here. And you can actually hit more info, and it'll show a little bit about the area. Same with some of the other sites, such as Porto Cove. If you want to click these, or on the right hand side here, you can see some of the recommended spots. And then on the bottom left here, there's this voting tab that you can vote on some of the possible upcoming areas that they might have the system in place. So as you can see here, if I zoom out, these are some of the areas that they're hoping to have in the future. Online, there's a lot of discussion about the risks between your service and the services provided at local dive shops. You want to elaborate on this?
Of course I do. There are risks to diving, and I want to acknowledge them. They're very real, and diving should be taken seriously, and you should be passionate about safety whenever you practice this sport. I'd like all divers to become stewards for safety for this sport, while also enjoying it. That's the key. We all want to enjoy what we love, and to do that safely. The two models for filling air, they're both done by machines. There are engineering barriers with DIVEAIR that we have meticulously worked to create, that we have redundant systems. We have live air monitoring. We have live filter integrity monitoring. And all of that we've brought here and compiled it into this system. You may have seen how your average dive shop fills their tanks. And some of them fill in tubs of water. Some of them fill just right next to you. I've personally seen sketchy fills like that. And I don't know whether your tech will be able to react fast enough to contain a failure. Part of the reason why this system was engineered and why so much time and dedicated failure modes, effects analysis, and dedicated engineering went into this is to increase the safety with filling tanks so that we're not relying on labels. So that, yes, that is part of your safety checklist, but there are additional barriers in place to keep you safe. And safety is DIVEAIR's #1 priority. Our system is here to deliver convenient, clean air for divers. And it's breathable quality air, non-toxic, and it's here to support your sport. We take great pride and passion into every single air fill. We have spent so many hours on this problem that you would not even believe. Dedicated teams of people working really hard locally here in BC to engineer specifically for this so that it can be brought here, so that it can be in the Spark. I mean, the fire department here in West Vancouver, they inspected this. There are several inspections it has gone under. It's CSA certified, CGA certified, and we have innovated to bring the system here.
So you touched on safety here. A comment that I see on Facebook is, how's your air going to be clean because it's in a parking lot? That adds to the convenience, but it's so close to CO2 from cars.
Our filtration is actually top of the line. It has highly advanced systems in place that monitor itself for integrity. It's also audited by us and our staff. We use a third-party lab to double check the air. At this location, this system has never contained air with a concentration of carbon monoxide higher than 1 part per million. And that's per our records. That's verified. We have taken great care to ensuring the high quality air at this location. Your local dive shops are actually located in the middle of cities where air quality can actually be lower because you have cars zipping by every day and all around. Here, you're next to the ocean, you're amongst trees, and the air quality here is likely better.
So it is getting a bit dark now, so this might be a little hard to see on the phone here. But we're going to do a quick demonstration of how this machine works, and I'm going to fill a little pony bottle up. For our demonstration today, we're just going to hit guest. But if you remember, you're going to scan a QR code on your phone and it'll link to your account. Next is simply select your tank size. The next screen shows you the types of membership offered. For example, if you choose the 20 fills per month, it's $100, which is about $5 a fill, or you can click continue and just pay for the one small tank here, which is $8 in this case.
So we actually offer e-receipts that can be sent via SMS to you. They work off of a receipt code and a receipt access PIN. I'm going to say no for my account. I don't really need one. We ask guest divers to confirm that they are indeed a diver in good mental and physical standing, and that they're not under the influence of alcohol or under the influence of any drugs that are contradictory to scuba diving. And you have to agree to our terms, otherwise you can decline and be refunded the transaction. And then once you've confirmed, you can always go back to go and read any one of them. If you misclicked or anything of that sort, and then you can either accept or you can decline. I'm going to accept for the demonstration. Now you're sent to select a side, and I want to note that the fill door is still closed and you cannot actually fill a tank yet. So I'm going to choose a side. I'm going to pick the left fill slot. This step here, we've seen some controversy online, and I want to demonstrate what happens if I have an invalid tank. So I want you to pick a date.
All right, we'll do 2000, April 24th.
So April and 2000.
All right.
And so we get a warning. It will label your tank as, yeah, you have an expired visual inspection date and the tank is now prohibited. So I can't do anything. The door is still closed.
Let's try to break in.
You cannot. The door is in place, it's locked, so you hit OK, and then these are the options that you get. You can either swap out the prohibited tank for a valid and accessible extra tank, at which point you're prompted again for the visual inspection date. You can remove the prohibited tank, and you can proceed with any remaining in your fill order. This is in case, for example, you brought 5 different tanks, one of them was expired because you grabbed the wrong one, or you can end your fill. And in this case, I'm going to end my fill, and we actually ask you to agree to other terms here as an additional warning that will tell you, do not fill this tank. That cancels your order, and you are not billed.
So I'm going to go through and fill one properly.
Okay, and so my visual inspection date is February, and I also have a hydro. So for hydro, again, if I input an invalid date, and let's go with 23. Actually, is it November yet? No, this is a future date, for example. So we are currently in October, and again, it will kick you out because the date is in the future. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my prohibited tank, and I'm going to end the fill order. I'm going to go again. Okay, so February 23. And then my hydro for this tank is February 23. And then the door opens. So at this point, the system actually prompts you here and walks you through the process for how to attach your tank. This whole process is monitored live. So there are live analytics being done on this process to detect problems with your O-ring, to detect whether this valve is open or closed, and whether or not the tank is statistically attached. So if I don't attach a tank, the system knows. And it will tell the difference between an empty tank, a tank with its valve closed, a full tank, and other failure modes. And we've meticulously gone through all possible failure modes for this process to make sure that when the system says, yes, there is a tank, it actually knows statistically, yes, there is a tank attached. And you can show the demonstration here. So this is a looping animation that walks you through how to attach a tank. And it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. And so for the pony tank, it's easiest to rest it here. Step 1 is you attach the fill yoke. Step 2, close the purge valve. Step 3, you open the tank valve. And this tank is almost full because I've already run a fill today on it. You placed it in the fill slot. And at this point, now the system is ready for additional checks. And when I hit verify, you'll notice that the system is running a check here. And it's actually detecting issues with the tank. So at this point, it's asking me if I'd like to top up the tank because we're almost full. And so it gives you the top up fee, and I'm going to say yes. And it is running background checks. Here, you cannot do anything until the system verifies whether or not the tank is properly attached. And this may take a couple of seconds. And so usually what the problem is that this valve is not completely open. And the second that I opened it completely, you can see the system now has detected the tank correctly. And it is a sensitive process. So come back if you have an issue, check this valve here, because if it's not all the way open, the system won't detect that the tank is there, and then it won't let you fill. Once everything's all ready, the tank is detected. It is now live monitoring this process the entire time. You hit start, and this door will close. If I stick my hand in, it opens. And if I just lean here, the door won't close. The second I remove my arm, the system starts. No air is input into your tank without this being in place. And our system guarantees that this is in place before the air is actually input into your tank. And then our algorithm now works to fill your tank, and we never crash fill your tank. That's one of the risks you run when you choose your local dive shop, is that some dive shops may crash fill tanks. This system will never do that. A crash fill is when you dump a whole bunch of air into your tank all at once, and then you slow down near the end. And the reason you would do that is if you're crunched on time. But the issue with that is you're putting a whole bunch of kinetic energy into your tank all at once. And that stresses the metal in the tank, and it'll actually decrease the lifespan of your tank. You also run the risk of rupturing the tank. With this system, we don't do that. Part of the reason why you will get hot tanks is because they're being filled too quickly. If you do a slower air fill, the amount of kinetic energy is lower and the tank will not overheat as much because you're not stressing the metal in the same way.
100%, and the door opens up.
Now the system will actually walk you through removing your tank. The process is now reversed. It's instead of 1, 2, 3, it's 3, 2, 1. First you close your tank valve, then you open the purge valve to drain the air fill line, and then after that you remove your fill yoke and you're ready to. So you close your tank valve, you open the purge valve, and you can see the pressure actually is live monitored on the left here. You can see it going down as I'm draining the air. And then it asks you to remove the fill yoke and take your tank. Now when I hit verify, the system knows the tank is gone. It'll create your receipt, and we do e-receipts that you can access.
All right, thank you guys so much for meeting me and clarifying some of these questions that the dive community has. I'm sure there's going to be much more questions that I didn't think of. So in the comments down below, if anybody has any comments, write them there. I'll try my best to answer them, and I'll forward them to DIVEAIR and the team here, and hopefully we can get some clarification for you.
We'd be happy to provide it.
So I hope you learned a little bit from that. And now, basically it's my opinion now, and I want to clarify that I'm not a teacher, I'm not an expert diver, nothing like that, but I do have some opinions, and I have a bit of experience in the field. So I'm just going to read a bit of a speech that I wrote here, and hopefully you guys agree with it. You might not, that's fine. You're welcome to your own opinions. But like I said, this is my opinion here. So as addressed, there were many comments about the DIVEAIR system that seemed to be from a viewpoint with a bit of bias. And you might have not liked the machine in the first place before giving it a chance or doing any research about it. But I do understand the viewpoint of wanting to support your local dive shop, but you're going to have to go to your dive shop to buy gear, rent gear, and get your gear serviced. So in the long run, I think filling up a couple tanks here and there isn't really going to affect a dive shop. The most negative comment online about this system was in regards to people filling out-of-date tanks. And in the long run, if you're going to lie about this to the machine and put in false hydro or viz dates, that's kind of on you. And if this person is going to be using out-of-date tanks, what does their gear look like? And if you're not going to follow the basic servicing of gear, how safe are you when you're actually diving in the water? Are you a person with a basic PADI, and are you diving down to 140 feet? Having out of his tank of a couple months, let's say, in this circumstance is going to be the least of your worries. So if you have a dive buddy who you know and you witness break the rules, well, maybe you really shouldn't dive with them. Or be a proper buddy and step in, and if you witness a friend of yours using equipment they shouldn't be using, you should step in. And if it's not something that you're willing to do, maybe you're not a very good friend to them. And don't get me wrong, I have a couple dive shops that I absolutely trust in my life. When they're servicing my regulators, that's a really important piece of your diving gear, obviously, and you want someone that really knows what they're doing. So in the same way that DIVEAIR relies on user input information to be accurate, you also rely on the dive shop that you're working with to be as precise, honest, and accurate with you. And in the long run, you're going to choose what is right for you. This might be the DIVEAIR system, this might not be. And no one's going to force you to make that decision. You're still going to have to go to a dive shop, like I said, and buy your gear, get your gear serviced. So you're still going to have good relationships with dive shops. And I hope that this system just acts like a bit of a addition or bonus to some of these dive facilities. And if they can make these parks better, that'd be awesome. Because I do know that a lot of these parks lack a lot of amazing facilities, such as like a hot shower. There's only a couple I know of that have a luxury like that. And you might be asking, do you think I'm going to use that system or not? And personally, with the location where it is right now, I'm probably not going to use it. I live in Chilliwack, so that's a far detour for me. And I've honestly only dove Whytecliff a couple times. And it's just really not the kind of diving I normally do. I'm really more into the treasure crash finding kind of stuff. But for the system itself, I might use it occasionally. I do have a couple relationships with dive shops where I get my air for free. So just because of that, I'm personally, honestly, not probably going to use this system very often. But again, that's going to be down to you if you decide to use it for yourself. Yeah, so if you have any questions or concerns still, I would love to hear from the comments down below, and we're going to get the guys at DIVEAIR to respond to as many of these as possible, so please reach out. If you want to put them in the YouTube comments, that'd be appreciated. It just makes it nice and easy to respond to them all, and I'm probably going to share this to a couple different pages, so we'll just keep it all nice and concise, but I'll try and pass on any questions you guys have regardless of where they're posted. Alright guys, thank you so much for this, and yeah, take care, dive safe.